starting today, I need to get my view to speaker view so I can see me. Probably should have started the video now. Okay, moving along in chapter 6, we're going to look at 2 more components that we can put in our class that's really going to help us with creating these classes and getting them ready. So if some generic user wanted to use the class, everything that might be needed about the class is in the class. All right, so when we go to instantiated class, we were using the class name. For example, we said circle, and we said circ1 equals new circle, and then we had empty parentheses. And that was how we did this thing called instantiate an object. Well, I'm going to back up and I'm going to talk about something similar, and that is, remember when I said int x? Way back when. Well, int x created a memory space, so on and so on, for us to store integer values in a variable x. Well, one of the things that we could do is say int x equals 4 right away and give it a value. Okay, what we're going to take a look at today is, what if I say, okay, I have a circle, but instead of using set radius, which was one of the methods in my circle class, what if I could give it a value right away like I did with int x? And what we're going to do today is we're going to create something called a constructor so that I can give it a value right away. So that I can be doing something like circle, circ1 equals new circle. And I'm going to say, hey, I want my radius. So inside of the parentheses, I'm going to put the argument 4.2. So that now it's going to send that 4.2 over, and we're going to set it up so that I can assign the 4.2 to the variable radius right away. And how do I do this? I create a constructor. Now, my initial statement, circle, circ1 equals new circle with empty parentheses, actually calls something called a default constructor. And if we don't write one, there's one that's already in there. And it'll give radius a value of probably 0. Okay, but I can write my own default constructor and say, hey, if a new object is instantiated, like circle, circ1 equals new circle, empty parentheses, I can set it up so I can give radius whatever value I want. I can give it an initial value. Sort of like int x, as far as we know, gives x the value of 0. So these things are done with something called a constructor. Now, you did code listing 610, 611. You also did code listings 620 and 621. And when you do these, you start to see these examples. And hopefully all I'm doing is filling in the holes. A constructor is called when we have an instance of a class. You know, that's the big talk when someone's walking down the hall. We leave the room open because we use a lot of big words. Okay. And again, that's when I say an instance of a class, circle, circ1 equals new circle. That's an instance of the class. Okay. When I write them up, when I put these constructors in, I will have them, they will be called, they will use the same name as the class. So I'm going to have constructors, they're going to be called circle. Okay. They're going to store initial values. And that's what we said. They're going to store initial values in our fields. So for circle, all we had was radius. For us, when we took a look at rectangle, rectangle may have as many as 3 constructors, the way I look at it. And you're going to see this for a couple of you are already done 6.1, and this is what you're going to be adding to 6.2. Okay, a default constructor, public rectangle, empty parentheses. So where do I put this? In my class, I'm going to have my class name. I have my fields. For example, in rectangle, my fields were just length and width. I didn't want any other fields because it might create stale data. I believe we talked about stale data on Wednesday. Okay, so I'd have my constructors length and width. Excuse me, back up. I have my fields length and width. Next thing, before my methods, I'm going to write constructors. And here's the first one: public rectangle, empty parentheses. The empty parentheses, there are no arguments being passed into a parameter list because I don't have a parameter list. So if I instantiate an object with empty parentheses, it's going to hit this constructor and say, hey, I'm going to give length an initial value in my class of 10 and width an initial value in my class of 10. Now, what if I wrote rectangle and I did something along the lines of rectangle rec4 equals new rectangle, and in parentheses I put 5. I put one argument. Well, it's now going to come to my second constructor that I have written. Public rectangle, double side. That's my parameter list. That's what's in the parentheses. So value is going to come in and it's a single value. And I'm going to take that single value and I'm going to say length equals side and width equals side. So I'm going to give them the option of giving both the length and the width the same size to start. Finally, I may have a third constructor. This one would be when I would instantiate an object like circle circ5 equals new circle parentheses 6, 7, where I have two numbers I'm passing in, two arguments. So this constructor has two items in the parameter list. Public rectangle, parentheses, double len, double width. Okay, just two variables I'm using. These are local variables, len and width. And when I come in, I'm going to say length equals len and width equals width. For you, I only see in the circle class that we're working on now, 2. I would say you would have the default constructor. That's the one where you would say public circle, empty parentheses, and then inside of the braces, you would put something like radius equals 4 or radius equals 1. You're just giving that field a default value. Second one you might have is public circle, parentheses, double R, a single parameter coming in, single item in my parameters, and then radius equals R. So I would have a default and one that passes one value in to set the radius. This idea of using the same name, public rectangle for the default constructor, public rectangle for the one with just the one, public rectangle, and we had multiple constructors. This is a concept called overloading. And overloading is when we have the same name. And we can do this for methods as well as constructors. They have the same name, public rectangle, and public rectangle, but they have different parameter lists. And when I say different parameter list, a shortcut term for different parameter lists is called signatures. So I can overload methods, I can overload constructors. They all have the same name, but different signatures or different parameter lists, however you'd like to put that. Questions on constructors. So when you write your program 6.2, you're going to have 3 constructors. And I want you to make sure you're doing multiple objects so that you're testing each constructor. Again, big words, we should have the door open for people walking up and down the hall.
Are they kind of like if statements in a way, where it goes in and checks each one individually to see which one applies?
Right. So we have 3 of them right now. If I did this rectangle, it's a good question. rectangle, rect1 equals new rectangle. And I had empty parentheses. Which one of my three constructors would be called?
Default.
The default one, right? And length would get a value of 10 and width would get a value of 10. And off we go with using all the methods if we wanted to. What if I said rectangle, rect2, rectangle. Now I'm instantiating a different object. Rect2 equals new rectangle. And I send in a value of 10. Which constructor gets used?
It's the second one.
The second one, right? And in this one, my length is going to get an initial value of 10, which is being passed in, and my width is going to get an initial value of 10 as well. And finally, I'm going to instantiate a third, different, unique, because these are all different. If I said rect1.getLength, rect2.getLength, they're going to have different numbers coming in. Okay, so here rectangle, rect3 equals new rectangle. This time I'm sending in the values 5 and 7. What's the length for rect3 going to be?
5.
5. What's the length for, or the width? You got the idea. It's going to be 7. Okay, so these are called constructors. Again, in my UML chart, I'd have my class name, I'd have my fields, and then traditionally you put the constructors after that. Then you would have all of the methods to follow it. Questions? Okay, good. The second thing we're going to talk about is something called toString. And before we go to toString, I'm going to go back to circle that we wrote the other day. And you went into groups and you added get area and the get sphere or something. You added a couple of extra methods to it. And everything was great. Okay, and we were done. Now, here's where I'm at. What if I came in and said, well, I'm just curious, what would happen if I would do J option pane dot show message dialog null? And what if I said, well, I wonder what circ1 is. So in this demo program that we worked on last Wednesday, we instantiated an object called circ1. We gave circ1 a radius value and so on. But what if I tried to print it? Like if I said system.out.print x, it printed whatever value was stored at x. Well, I'm wondering what would print out if I tried to print out my object. And I don't know if this is going to give me a compile error or what it's going to do. I'm going to compile it and it looks like it's a little bit happy. So I'm going to still have, good. I enter a radius of 5 and it says, here's the diameter 10, which is what we worked on the other day. And then all of a sudden, my second J option pane dot show message dialog box null circ1 gives me an output that says circle at 7276C8C. Yuck. Darn it. I was hoping it would display nice like everything else. Well, it doesn't. It prints out some default that the computer knows to use, something to do with its memory location. All right. Well, that's a shame because if I could just print out the object circ1, all the information would just display. I wouldn't have to do a lot of building. I'd like it to be done by the class. And in order to have it done by the class, I'm going to use something called toString method. Now, this used to be in chapter 4. I personally liked it in chapter 4. The author must have found out because he moved it to chapter 8. So section 8.4 is the second part of what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about a toString method that we're going to put in the class. ToString method is going to be the last method in the class. Does it have to be? No, but that's where everybody who programs puts it as the last method, because it's after all of your other work is done. A toString method has a return type. Its return type is string. Make it the last method, and it allows us to display an object over in the demo. So this is going to override that string at AXCD, blah, whatever that crap was that we had over there. All right, so let's look at the layout of a toString. Public string, that's my return type, string. toString, empty parentheses. Now, I don't have to use the toString anywhere over in my demo program. This will automatically be used when I go and try to print out circ1. It'll come and get what's here. All right, so let's see what is going on in toString. I have string str, a local variable. String equals, here is the length, plus, and I have my length, plus, and I could build a nice big long string with everything from the methods in my class. And then I'm going to return that string. I'm going to go back over to the program that we had from the other day. And I'm going to go to the class, and I'm going to create one more method at the very bottom. Public string, which is my return type. I'm language mixed up. It is a capital S, right? C++, it's a lowercase s. All right.
Yes.
TO, lowercase t, capital STRING. So toString with parentheses. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a temporary variable, string str, and I'm going to say str equals, double quote, here is the length, double quote, plus length, because that's going to use that field that I have inside of there, plus, double quote, \n. Now I'm going to do str equals str plus, here is the width, double quote, space, plus width, plus double quote /n. I'm going to do one more, str equals str plus, here is the area. Now, I don't have a field area, do I? And I don't want one, because whenever I want to talk about the area, I want the most current one. I don't want stale data. So here I'm going to call get area. Get area plus double quote backslash. I don't need double quote backslash. I'm just going to call get area. Oh boy, I hope I don't have a syntax error.
Doesn't it need to be circ1 dot get area?
Well, let me ask you this. What if I was using circ2 and I wanted to get its area? What if I'm using circ98? So I want this toString to be generic. And when I put get area, it's going to call the get area for the current object.
Okay.
Okay. So hopefully with a little luck, I'll go over to my demo and I don't have any syntax errors, which would be fantastic. And I'm going to, I compile it and it works. So I'm going to put in 5 for circle. And now it's going to do that first J option pane box that said, here's the radius 5, here's the diameter. And remember, this second show message dialog box what said show circ1, and oh no, it just still gave me circ1. Why did it not overload with my toString? What did I do wrong? Public string toString. It should call toString. I'm going to do something real quick. I don't know why it's not calling the newest one. And I think I know why it's not calling the newest one, because I didn't update and save. So it was still compiling with my old version. So I updated and saved it, and let's cross our fingers. We're gonna compile it. I enter 5, and I still get the stick. Why is it not doing circ 1? Somebody tell me what's going on. It's supposed to do circ 1. This works whenever I practice it. All right, take a
Are you
time out. Background music. What's that?
Are you supposed to identify the arguments in the toString method? I don't think you did that.
What would you like? I'm sorry, I don't know your,
The-
I don't, go ahead.
The arguments in the toString, like you have on the get, wait, I actually no, never mind.
No,
I don't know. I don't think that would work.
public class.
Never mind.
Well, let me try. It should work here. I'm gonna do, it's supposed to work. Dagnammit.
Would
I
you do
do-
str plus equals instead of equals?
Did it say again?
Would you do for the 3 lines of str you have, would you do plus equals instead of just equal?
6 of one, half a dozen of another. I'm gonna try something else. I'm going back to my demo program. System.out.println circle 1. Let's see what happens here. I'm wondering if I have to store it temporarily in a string. Okay, so something over here it didn't like. What doesn't it like about my toString? Huh. I'm telling you, this is supposed to work. Everybody hang on. I have some tricks up my sleeve to try to debug this. See if it works without that get 5. Nope, it's still giving me the address. All right, so I came over to my demo. I made the toString the last method. I put the string on the word public. I'm returning a string, str string. String is going over. And all I have to do is say the name of the object. And you know, I've done this like several times already. Get area, I add, I don't end the toString early with a semicolon at the end of the name. Huh. Where are my smart students? String str.
Does bracket 49 go to 40?
Does bracket 49 go with 40? Yes. Now, I wasn't getting a compile error. Oh, duh. I'm doing length and width, and I'm supposed to have radius. So it's probably all confused where length and width are coming. Here's the radius. Plus radius with the /n. I can get rid of this entire second line because I'm using radius instead of length and width. I'm going to save everything. I'm going to come back to circle demo. I'm going to cross my fingers and I need to compile the demo. And let's see. Drum roll. Why didn't anybody catch the length and width thing? Here's my 5. Why is it not letting me put a 5 in there? 5. There's my first one I feel good about. There's my second one. Now it works. It was getting hung up on length and width that didn't exist. And I never got into that toString and nobody caught it except me. All right. So that's actually, so me now saying joption pane.show message dialog null circ1 is going to go and do whatever is in the toString. Okay. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to just show you what the UML chart looks like. I have a giant rectangle. First line of my rectangle is the name of the class, rectangle. The second is my fields. I put a minus in front of length because I want it to be private. So minus length double, and I have minus width double. That way, if I wanted to develop this class before I typed it, this UML chart is perfect. The next three things in the list, I have pluses in front of each one of them because they are all public and they are my constructors. I say I want a constructor called rectangle with empty parentheses, a constructor called rectangle with a double coming in, and a constructor rectangle with two doubles coming in. Then I had my sets, which were my mutator. I have pluses in front of them. Plus set length, parentheses, len, double coming in, parentheses. And then I have the word void after it because this is a void function. Then I have plus set width, parentheses, wid, colon, double, parentheses, void after it because it's a void method. The next couple are my accessor methods, mutator and accessors, plus get length, parentheses, empty parentheses now because I'm not passing anything in, and on the outside a double because I'm going to return a double, plus get width, empty parentheses, colon, a double, plus get area, parentheses, colon, double. And then finally, my last thing is plus string, toString, because I'm going to return a string there. Questions?